Hello, and welcome to the Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics Career Choice Panel discussion. We are very excited to have our panelists and participants with us today. To get things started, we'd like to know how you are joining us. So at this time, please let us know if you are joining us as an individual attendee or if you are participating as a class via the poll on your screen. All right, they are rolling in, and we'll give folks just a few more seconds to respond. Okay, so it looks like approximately 80% of our guests are attending individually today. But however you are joining us, we hope you'll actively participate in today's discussion. While you cannot chat with our panelists via the chat feature, you can and you are encouraged to submit questions for the panel or a particular panelist via the Q&A feature. Submit your name or class name with your question, and we'll read it along with your submission, or feel free to submit a question anonymously. There will also be a couple of polling questions, very similar to the ones that we just completed. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to turn things over to the panel's moderator, David Sage with Virginia Technical Institute. Welcome, David.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. We're glad that you could be here for transportation and logistics topic. We're going to hear from some great individuals who are going to share from their experience. As they get started, they're going to give a little description. They're going to give their name, a brief description of what they do, kind of big picture. They're going to talk about what an individual day may look like, how long they've been with their organization, and why have they always worked in this field, where they came out of, and what kind of education they needed to get into this field, and then what was their first job, and then what is their favorite part of their job. So we're going to get started. We're going to get started with Mr. Anthony with DCC. So Mr. Anthony, if you would share with us.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with you. My name is Ed Anthony from Danville Community College. I'm an instructor here at Danville Community College in automotive analysis and repair. Basically, what I do is teach students year-round here at Patrick Henry Community College and automotive studies from one end of the car to the other. My main area, where there are two instructors here, my main area is basically drivetrains and engines. My typical day starts off, basically, we start at 8 o'clock in the morning for classes and generally go to about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have a break in the middle of the day for lunch and so forth. So we have hands-on contact with actual live cars, and we actually have classroom studies also. Pretty much one way or the other have always worked in this field. I've been here with the college system for approximately 29 years. And before that, I worked as an automotive technician and a shop owner earlier. So I've had hands-on throughout my whole life teaching and so forth, and I've really enjoyed that. My post-secondary education was, I actually went to Danville Community College. It was the first college I went to, and got my degree here. And as the years went through, and I started teaching, then I worked on towards getting a bachelor's degree in education, and that's what I hold now. Really, and actually, if you're deciding to pursue the area of automotive work today, things are so in depth, you need at least a 2-year education post-secondary to pursue this area. It's getting very in depth and so forth, the electronics of the car and the new electronic cars that are coming out. Everything's electronic and electricity. We still do have gasoline engines at this time. First job I ever actually had was I worked at a lumber company, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I guess you could say. But my biggest love has always been cars. And so I worked after I did that and got ready to go to college and so forth. Basically, I never went to work back working in a lumber company after that. I've always had automotive related jobs. The favorite part about my job is the students, is getting to see, spend time with students and see them learn about what their interest is in cars and giving them the tools to go far with this. So I think that's the biggest thing, is getting to spend time with my students so that they can learn.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. I appreciate that. Our next panelist will be Mr. Jermaine, and if you would share for us.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be here. My name is Dan German, and I'm the manager of workforce development for a company called Inframark. And Inframark is in the water and wastewater operations field. Those of you who have public water and public sewer, you might not think a lot about when you turn the faucet on and the water comes out, or what happens to the water after it goes down the drain, but that's what we do. We are a third-party outsourcer. We operate drinking water and wastewater plants in 19 different states across the country. We operate about 300 plants. So we don't build the plants, we don't own the plants. We are simply hired by cities, municipalities, and towns to operate their plants. So the plants are primarily supplying fresh drinking water and then dealing with processing wastewater. So the typical day for a plant operator is monitoring and collecting samples of either the groundwater being pulled out to turn into drinking water, or the wastewater coming in to be processed into water that we release back into the watershed. I have actually been working in my particular field of human resources for about 35 years. Not all of it in water and wastewater operations, but a good part of it. And, you know, it really is an amazing role that people should consider. It does not necessarily require 4 or even a 2-year college degree. We hire plenty of operator and training candidates right out of high school, and we help them prepare for their various state certifications. We provide training for them to get them certified. We pay them well throughout the process, and then we pay them even more once they're certified. So, you know, we do have some college graduates working in these roles, but we have a lot of people coming straight out of high school. And there are some 2-year community colleges that have water technology programs or environmental science programs, and we work closely with them. In fact, we're working closely with Danville Community College right now, and had an intern in this summer in our big operation in Danville. So when you're driving outside the towns and you see these big concrete plants that have big circles, some of them are capped, some of them are uncapped. Sometimes you might have a little smell associated with it. That's what it is that we do. There's one in every city and every town, and it's a critically important resource. And that's really the favorite thing I have about my job, is that we are a protector of this critical resource for the communities that we serve. Many of us here at Inframark think there's nothing more important than water, right? We need water every day. Everybody, everything needs water. And we really have a challenge educating people about this resource. It's something that we all touch every day, but most people don't even think about where the water comes from and where it goes. So it really is a direct tie to the environment, and it's a very exciting business to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. German. Appreciate that. Good information. All right, Mr. Harris, if you would share with us.
Good morning. My name is Ricky Harris. I'm with First Piedmont Waste Solutions. We are a private waste hauling company based in Danville. We do have other locations, those being Lynchburg, Martinsville, and Rustburg. My position, I'm overseeing the Danville and Lynchburg operation. There'll be our drivers, which amounts to about 55 guys between those two locations. And this position that I do, it involves, we start out, of course, with the initial interviewing. We also get involved with the hiring process. Each day we have to develop a daily schedule for the guys. My typical day would normally start out at 6:30. We'd come in and get our group assembled, get their assignments for the day. And then once they leave, the remainder of the day involves fielding calls from customers, emails, relaying that information to the drivers so they can continue to go to the various customers as they call in for service. I've been with First Piedmont for 37 years, have done the majority of my time doing what I'm doing now. I did start out with the company in accounts receivable. And in addition to our hauling operation, we also operate a solid non-haz industrial waste landfill just outside of Danville. And with that, we accept what we refer to as special waste, which would be something different than just your regular ordinary trash. So the special waste involves analytical work, characterization from customers, et cetera, and that has to be reviewed and approved before it can come in. So I do have done the special waste approvals for about 25 years, in addition to the hauling end of it. I do have an associate degree in accounting. And my first job, coming off of a farming background, it's primarily all out on the farm and then directly into where I'm at now. So, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's a great place to work. And, you know, what we do is critical. Everybody's generating trash, and you gotta move it, and you gotta get rid of it appropriately. I would say for myself, what I enjoy as much as anything doing this is that every day is different. You start out each morning with a different schedule than the one you had before as far as what the guys are doing. So it's always a challenge to be able to, you know, get your requests from the customers and then be able to develop a daily work schedule and hopefully be able to get it all done by the time we finish the day up. And you wrap that day up, and then you get right back in and start it again the next day.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Appreciate that. Mr. Best is not showed up yet. Is that correct? Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to now look towards our second poll. So students, you'll be seeing some polls that are coming up on your screen, and you can answer those questions that are going to be given to you. Our guest speakers, we don't have the opportunity to answer those questions, but you know, it's been interesting just to see what we've been looking at. We've been looking at wastewater plants. We've been looking at clean water. We've also been looking at waste management, removing waste, and then also how to repair vehicles, and you know, understanding the diversity of what we need to be able to get into these industries, whether it be from the 2-year degree from DCC to be an automotive mechanic, or being able to start in basically an apprenticeship and be able to be paid while we're trained. And so looking forward to getting to some questions from you students, but I do have some questions I'll be asking the moderators. So we'll hopefully get to these poll results at the end of the discussion. I'm going to ask some questions. And what I'd ask is, let's try to go through the list of you three guys with each of these questions until we start getting some of these questions from the students. And so try to keep it brief, you know, a few sentences or a paragraph answer. What is the first question I'll have for the panelists? And again, we'll go Mr. Anthony, Mr. German, Mr. Harris. What is one of the biggest challenges of your work? And so if you would share, Mr. Anthony.
I think one of our biggest challenges is keeping up with the changing industry. Things are changing so quickly. We are constantly having to go for retraining all the time. I'm sure y'all are always seeing commercials on cars, and they're talking about electric cars and hybrid cars and things of that extent. It's just an ever-changing world that we have to contend with. And so for us to actually be able to teach the classes that we do to keep up, we have to go to school also. And we do some online stuff now, of course, things that are going on and so forth. But sometimes we actually have to go on like week-long trainings and so forth. I think that's our biggest challenge. I think one of the best things is getting to, when we get through all this, is actually get to see the students feel an accomplishment from what they've learned and how they can use it.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. German, how about for you? What is one of the biggest challenges of your work?
Yes, I would agree with that the changing technology certainly presents a challenge to us. From operations of water and wastewater plants, we've seen movement from traditional motors to computerized motors, and hiring not only operators, but maintenance technicians. They require a different skill set to operate those plants. Another very interesting challenge that we have as a plant operator, you're constantly dealing with a changing environment. So if you're working at a water plant, more than likely you're pulling your water from some source, whether usually a river. The weather changes the turbidity of that water all the time, so you have to treat that water differently based on the turbidity. So the types of treatments change day to day. On drinking water, all the treatment's done primarily through chemicals. On wastewater, we deal with volumes coming in that are changing every day. We deal with floods and hurricanes that change the components coming in, and that treatment has to change every day too. And that treatment is primarily done through biologics, through microorganisms and very few chemicals. So we're constantly changing the mix of the biologics to treat the water as well. So like anything else, the challenge can be exciting too. And that's actually one of the exciting things about the job as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's good information. And same question for you, Mr. Harris. What is the biggest challenge of your work?
Currently, right now, the biggest one we're facing is just staffing. And of course, that unfortunately is countrywide with this pandemic. It's just we're having a real hard time trying to find qualified applicants, get them in here, get them trained, and then hang on to them. So it's causing us a problem as far as getting them in here to be able to meet the needs of our customers. We've been blessed with the pandemic that we haven't slowed down any. We've actually increased as far as some of our workload. So that increased workload and a shortage of drivers is not a good combination. So we're struggling with that now. In addition to that, there again with the pandemic, our shop's having a hard time acquiring parts to keep the trucks repaired and on the road. So we're facing a crunch there some days, keeping everything moving just because of that.
So I'm hearing is it sounds like there's a lot of good opportunities for students to get employed in this industry. And I do want to ask a question for you. What does it take for somebody schooling wise to be able to drive a truck for your company?
You would definitely need to acquire a commercial driver's license, also referred to as a CDL. It's a written test that you take initially, and then you would go take a road test with the DMV folks, just like you would to acquire your normal driver's license.
Okay. How old do you have to be for a CDL? Do you know?
You have to be 18.
Okay. All right. So for you young folks who are thinking about a career, they're out there. Now we do have some questions. This one is for you, Mr. Anthony. Do you need a college degree to be a mechanic?
Not necessarily. One of the big things is if you don't get the advanced training, you have to sort of get it on the job. And usually where they'll start you off at a lower area or lower level, let's say it that way, a lower level at a shop, because there's time it's going to take you to actually learn a lot of these things and get the hands-on. So therefore, in a college or a school situation, any school situation that teaches automotive, any faction of automotive, it's more accelerated. You get to have explain how things work and so forth, whether rather than having to sort of catch it on your own as it comes and have to second guess yourself and so forth as much. It's like Mr. Harris has said, there's a huge need right now. There's like 70,000 positions that are open. And the faster the people can get in there, the quicker they can get a job. And, there's always a good challenge in any of the jobs that we're talking about today, the three of us. Great challenges.
Thank you. And so I want to ask a question that's going to go to all of you, and Mr. Anthony, we'll just start with you. One of the students was curious, what is the pay range? And so starting salary towards what somebody who could expect to receive as a accomplished professional a couple of years into the role. We'll start with you, Mr. Anthony.
Okay. Well, for beginners, it depends on exactly where you start. If you start at a lube tech job where you do oil changes and things to that extent, we're talking probably somewhere around about $12 or so an hour for starters. They'll keep you there for a little while, and to make sure that you're a good worker and so forth, and then they move you up. The general area as just an all-around technician is somewhere around about $40,000 a year. We have had students, or we do have students in the larger areas who have left here, like for instance, Richmond, Raleigh, and so forth, up to $100,000 a year.
Okay. And is that so a graduate of your school who doesn't start off as a lube tech, but spends and invests into themselves, takes 2 years and gains the credentials necessary,
Right.
that would be that $40,000 range?
Yeah, that's starting off pretty much at 40.
Okay.
And it all depends on the particular person themselves. If, like I said, there's great challenges, and if you can meet those challenges, you'll move quickly.
Awesome.
Make that money. That's the whole thing. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. German, same question.
Yes, very similar for us. Someone coming from a high school situation into an operator and training job. So that's a role where they're providing basic assistance at the plant with operations, testing of samples, monitoring of things, and operation of computerized equipment. Maybe on the lower tech side, we bring in this area, we'll bring in roughly around $15 an hour once they get certified. So that is some studying they need to do. We help them with that. We provide them the materials. They take the Virginia State exam for wastewater operations level 1. They get a raise. They get a bonus for that, $600 bonus. And they can basically climb a ladder of 4 rungs in operator ranks, and that will take them roughly to $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And then we have supervisory ranks that they can climb as well. Again, we are a company that operates in 19 states. So although this is a pretty hyper local business, most people work in the plants that supply services to the community that they live in. We do transfer people around the country in management roles. So, we have plant managers of our bigger plants are easily making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. So there's a long career path starting at $15 an hour.
Very good. Thank you. And then Mr. Harris, same question.
Yeah. For someone coming in with no experience at our place, you'd be looking at about $16 an hour. Here, we usually average about 50 to 55 hours a week. So anything over 40 hours a week is going to be time and a half for us. We mentioned earlier there about what do you need to do to qualify for this position. We mentioned getting a CDL. I would strongly recommend someone who's going to go into this field, when you go get that commercial driver's license, get all the endorsements you can get. That makes you more valuable to an employer when you come in the door. If you have a tanker endorsement, obviously that qualifies you to pull a tanker. Go ahead and get a hazmat endorsement. That opens up other doors. At our place with a hazmat endorsement, we haul and dispose of asbestos. So that qualifies you to do that. We do some haz waste hauling. You have to have that hazmat endorsement to do that. But just get as many endorsements as you can. Like I say, it just makes you more appealing when you walk in to get that job, and definitely makes you more valuable when you get on the job. And if you come in with endorsements, that's 16. Each one of those endorsements you get, we'll pay a little bit more for that. So 16 with just a Class A license, but come in with some additional endorsements, that makes you more valuable, put some more cash in your pocket.
Mr. Harris, I believe this question is also for you. It came in about the same time you were talking about overtime. And the question is, what is the longest you worked? So I'm assuming like the longest work week. You talk about overtime.
Yeah, our normal here at our location is about 55 to 60 hours a week. That's a normal work day. We're going to average about 10 hours a day. Sometimes it may be 12. You know, we're in the customer service business, so you know it's not the bank. It's not a straight 8 to 5. Some days we can't leave until our customers are taken care of.
And I have a question. I believe it's for you, Mr. Anthony. It's when do your classes start? When can a student join?
Okay. Basically, the program starts in September. Okay. Well, I mean, particularly August and late August, and goes through 5 semesters, one summer. Classes start 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Thursday. Okay, 4 days a week, and with no night classes. So I guess that's what we're basically looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This question is related, I guess, and we'll make it regionally. So in your Danville area, so how many employees do you have working, or what is the staffing needs that you have? And I guess the question is in relation, without the virus. So if things were normal and we're outside of the pandemic, what would be your employee need? And we'll start with you, Mr. German.
Yes, we actually, like a lot of us here, are an essential service. So the pandemic didn't slow us down. It didn't necessarily create more business for us. It was business as usual, just following CDC guidelines. We operate multiple plants in the Danville area. Our business model is that we start in a city and then we grow out from there and partner with neighboring cities. So we go down into North Carolina. We probably have 25 or 30 employees in the whole area. It's not a hugely labor intensive business. So, a few people can run a plant, but we do have multiple openings and we do have training programs available all the time. We hire more than we need because we recognize we've experienced a lot of retirement in the pandemic. That seems to be the most significant way that the pandemic has impacted our business. People have decided to retire, and then we're having a hard time recruiting, like Ricky said, just really challenging. So we've opened up positions everywhere because we need to fill the funnel of workers, and we've built a lot of really good training programs for folks as well.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, same question for you, and we'll think about regional, so Southern Virginia area.
Yeah, and our location here in Danville, we're about 3 short right now, and Martinsville, Rustburg, and Roanoke, they're pretty much in the same boat. So it's like I say, it's really causing us a dilemma trying to take care of the customers. But yeah, there's a definite need. There's a definite need in the area.
Okay. Mr. Anthony, this question I think would fit you probably better. How long do you need to work before you can own your own business, open up your own mechanic shop?
Well, I guess technically speaking, if somebody thinks they can make it, they can open up as soon as they get out of high school. Okay. I wouldn't suggest that. I've known people who have done it and made it, okay, and done very well. And that all goes back to a particular individual. But it's without training, it's harder. You actually need some business training, and not just automotive training. You need some business classes to open up your own business, to be able to do all the different things and working with Well, like for instance, we teach state inspection here. So that when the students get done, they can actually obtain their state inspection license, safety and license. So they need to have some office training, so to speak, to work with the paperwork. So, but basically they can start up just as soon as they get out of high school, but the more advanced training they have, it's going to be easier for them. We do have a program on that also, just on the business end.
Good.
For automotive.
Very good. That's helpful information, because it's more than just fixing cars to be in business for yourself.
That's
You got to
correct.
balance your budget. You mess up your taxes, you go to jail, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got to be
They'll
careful.
let you know, yes.
This is also for you, Mr. Anthony. What kind of cars do you all work on? Do you kind of cover every automotive, US and foreign, or how does that work?
We try to work on a little bit of everything. We basically try to limit our cars at no older age than 2000.
Okay.
Because the different things that are, like I say, are changing so quickly. 2000's even pushing it some now.
Yeah.
But we basically work on one end of the car to the other. We like to call this a bumper to bumper deal. Anything from engines, automatic transmissions, manual transmissions, computers, using scan tools, air conditioning and heating, fuel systems, braking systems, pretty much the whole gamut of what the cars goes on with the car. And with that, they also have a chance of getting ASE certified here at the school. By the time they're out, they take the classes, we pay for the classes, they get ASE student certified, and that goes on. So we haven't got time for that.
There was a question also, I guess you're popular today, Mr. Anthony. What was the most expensive car you guys have worked on in your shop?
Well, I mean, we get BMWs, Volvos. We had a Volvo in here just a few days ago. I mean, I've never seen a Ducati or anything like that.
If you do call me, I'm going to drop down and take a look. Okay, it's not that far a ride. And then, is there a CDL shortage? Have you guys noticed that? Is there a lack in qualified commercial drivers? And Mr. German, do you need commercial drivers for your techs? And Mr. Harris, is that an experience that you're noticing as well?
Yeah, we do not require a CDL for operators of our plants, but we do hire some employees that have CDLs to drive tanker trucks for us. And even the limited number that we're hiring, we're seeing a shortage, but more than a shortage, we're seeing the salaries have skyrocketed. So it's a supply demand issue in the marketplace.
Okay. Mr. Harris?
That is definitely the case. You know, there is definitely a shortage of it. So it's a great field to get into. You know, we're unique as far as versus some of the other companies. A lot of the folks that get into this field, maybe coming out of maybe even a truck driving school, they normally wind up, you know, some of the cross country deals from here to California a couple of times a week. But you know, we appeal to people because we can, you know, keep your head on your pillar at home every night versus leaving and not knowing exactly when you're coming back home.
Okay. Very good. And I'm going to ask this to all of you, and again, start in alphabetical order. What would you change about your job? And Mr. Anthony?
What would I change about my job? If
anything. Yeah, if anything.
If it were to be anything, that we could have more programs that were related to automotive and diesel, okay, and even a bigger facility.
Yeah. All right. Mr. German?
Yes, in our business, we operate plants that other people own. The cities own them. We just operate them. And in many cases, the cities don't have the budget to upgrade the plants, so we have to work with old technology, and we prefer to work with new technology in some cases. So that seems to be, you know, something that I hear people talking about in my business that they'd like to see change. The good part of that is our contracts are usually 10 years in duration, so we are able to see those changes over the duration of our contract. But as I'm sure everyone can attest, dealing with old technology is not as fun as dealing with new technology.
All right, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, for us, and we're right in the middle of trying to make some improvements in that. We have just installed tablets in our trucks. And this is allowing us to where we can eliminate the bulk of the paperwork that we're doing now. With our tablets, we're able to do our pre and post trips on our trucks, where we were having to fill out a form every day. We can do it on our tablets, get our work order numbers where we're servicing our customers. So we're right in the middle of hopefully getting on up to snuff here, to where we can, like I say, we leave that ink pen and paper at home, hopefully. So.
Mr. German, this question is for you, and it's in relation to your industry specifically. It's how do you work when there are power outages, or how does your water service, your sewage management or waste management, how do they work when power goes out?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it creates multiple challenges for us. We have backup power at our facilities, and we generally don't have that much of an issue locally operating the plant. What happens in some cases, though, is that there's these things called lift stations, and a lift station lifts the wastewater up so it can get to the plant from the city. Sometimes the plants are uphill from the cities. Not all of it is downhill. They go out, we have remote power at the lift stations too, but it's a little chaotic when that happens, to say the least.
Yeah, imagine. This one's kind of for everybody. It sounds like most of you have been in the same industry for a long time. And the question was, have you stayed at the same job your whole life? So maybe as these young folks are thinking about career paths and longevity, you all seem to have longevity, but maybe kind of walk them through some of your journey a little bit, just briefly in 1 to 2 minutes. We'll start with you, Mr. Anthony.
Okay. I basically, after I got out of high school, I came here to Tampa Community College for my training. And after that, I worked in several dealerships, automotive dealerships, Ford, General Motors, et cetera, and so forth. Worked those for years, about 9 years. And then I worked for the community college system for a while. And then I worked for a high school system for a while, teaching. Okay, both of these are teaching, of course. And then I had my own business for several years. And then I got back into the community college system back in about 2000 and been here to now. So I've had sort of a variety of something to do one way or the other. It had to do with automotive, whether it was teaching or it was my own business or I was working for a dealership.
Thank you. Mr. German, same question.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that from a wastewater operator standpoint, because we just completed a study internally where we talked to a lot of our managers and we had them map out what their career has been. And I'll give you sort of the stereotypical career for a wastewater operator. Again, I mentioned earlier, some people have gone to college, 2-year degree, 4-year degree, environmental science, water science, and started as an operator. But the significant number of people that started with us came out of high school. They were generally someone in high school that had an interest in science, but for whatever reason, couldn't go to college and liked to tinker with things. And those people came in and were trained as an operator, went through their various state certifications. Typically, you end up at your plant and you move up through that plant. And if you want to relocate, you can move out to another plant. But typically, you're not in the same job, but you very well could be in the same location for a good long part of your career.
Thank you. That was great. And then Mr. Harris?
Yeah, when I came out of high school, like I said, I went to Danville Community College and I got an associate degree in accounting, and honestly, was thinking about heading that direction. I like to crunch numbers and had always been interested in the business side of it, but got a call from Mr. Davenport, who owns First Piedmont, and he offered me a position, and I started there in the main office in accounts receivable and did that for about 4 years. And as I mentioned earlier, started doing the special waste approvals for our landfill. And right after I got into that, we had this position open up. The gentleman that was doing it moved on somewhere else, and it was offered, and I took it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I say, I've been with the company for 37 years, and the bulk of it's been doing what I'm doing right now, over the hauling part of it.
Very good. We'll go back to for all of you. What is something that most people will be surprised about your industry? So, you know, a lot of times people have a vision of what they think you do, but what's that exciting or interesting twist that maybe nobody knows? And we'll start again with you, Mr. Anthony.
Okay. Well, I think to an extent that a lot of folks have a misconception that we still are just a bunch of guys who stay greasy all the time. Okay. And that's highly changed. You know, cars are made interiorly a lot nicer than they used to be. They have got a nice interior in the car. And so people do not appreciate you getting their car dirty. So that's something, I can't say it's totally moved away, but we try to make sure that it stays that way. And with that, with all the electronics of the car now, cars are going to be dirty because they drive down the road. They ride down the road. But it has changed because of the computer age of the cars, it has turned into more of a clean job than it has in the past. Gotcha. Because of the fact that we're using computers, we're sitting in the cars, diagnosing things to that extent. There's a lot more diagnosis than there is anything else now. I mean, yes, we still fix things and repair things.
Gotcha.
But it's become much more of a clean hands type thing, and it's a mind challenge thing, whereas years ago, we had to figure out what was wrong with the car, and then you replace the parts. Now we have a game we have to play with the computer to chase that.
We have about 2 minutes left, Mr. German.
Yeah, similarly for us in Inframark, you would think the wastewater business is a really dirty job, right? You can smell it when you drive by the plant, so you assume it's a filthy job. It's really not. You know, most of our operators are sitting behind a panel, using process controls to change what's going on in the plant. Very rarely are they out at the plant getting their hands dirty. They may have to go out to the plant to take samples of effluent that's coming out of the plant, but other than that, it's not a dirty job anymore, and I think that's a misconception.
All right. Excellent, thank you. Mr. Harris?
Same thing here. I think a lot of times when people think of refuge or garbage, you're thinking of something that's, you know, filthy or whatever. But a lot of our positions, you know, you're not out there in the where the trash is at. We've got companies that we go to that might be 2 or 3 hours away, where we're actually just switching out a container. You'd never know you were hauling anything that had any odor to it, because it doesn't. And another misconception, as Ed mentioned earlier, and he just said something about the interiors of cars. I think people would be surprised when you look at some of the interiors of some of the newer trucks that we're getting now. It's pretty impressive. It really is. They've come a long ways.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. We're about out of time, but just for our students as a recap, these industries are in high demand. Transportation is in desperate need. In each of your local industries, you all are currently hiring. And so if a student is interested, the good thing is for many of what they need, they don't necessarily need a degree. They need some level of training, and it would help, especially in automotive, if they would join a program and get their credentials, get their license, because of their career advancement. Instead of starting at 12, they're going to start at 40,000 a year. And so just taking that pause to invest in yourself, to you know, if you work your way up, it could take 6 years, 8 years, but if you take and get your credential, you got it done in 2. And so thank you all. Very helpful, great information. I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you, David. Students, we hope you were exposed to some new careers and organizations in our region today. You can continue your career exploration through Major Clarity and the Career Choice website and activities. Remember, the more you engage, the more you learn. This panel counts as an activity towards Career Choice gear, as do the other panels, the scavenger hunt, and the survey. Thank you to our moderator, panelists, teachers, and sponsors who made today's discussion possible. We couldn't bring Career Choice to our regional students without you. Here's hoping that we get to see you all, your business, students, teachers, back in person next year. Thank you so much. Have a great day.